Here's the deal. Do you ever get so rumbled by a TV show that you break your 5-year YouTube hiatus? Because me neither. That would be so weird. Okay, this was obviously not the first video I planned to make as like a comeback to YouTube. I have a whole one scripted and ready, but such is life. Okay, kids, we're going to talk about Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender. I know YouTube is fast as fuck now, so there's probably going to be a million videos already of people pointing out the issues with the live action Avatar remake. The dialogue, the exposition, the weird story choices, etc, etc. I'm serious, is this like some kind of divine punishment for how bad our media literacy has gotten? Because I don't like it. Anyway, I'm going to leave all that to them, because also I don't think I hate it as much as that. I don't have that much vitriol towards the live action remake. Other than the first 2 extremely painful episodes, I actually found some of it quite enjoyable. And the cast, they're a gag. I love them. They're amazing.
Hey, we're the cast of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
I actually don't have a bad word to say about any of the cast. I think they're all really cool. In fact, I'm gonna go as far as to say that quite a lot of this show was actually okay. It was quite good. Yippee. Which is why I'm so deeply baffled by what happened to Katara. Like, how did this happen? It almost feels like they forgot about her. They did her at the end. They were like, oh shit, guys, we're supposed to like give a good storyline to Katara and make her a real character. I don't know. There's a lot to enjoy in this remake. There's some really fun and genuinely moving moments. I found myself getting quite teary at some of them. So if this is your introduction to the Avatar world, then welcome. We're so happy to have you. That's amazing. Also, it got my mom watching the OG animation, and that's like a huge deal to me. So even if I'm not crazy about the live action, I'm so thankful to it for doing that for me. Hello, mum. I mean, isn't that lovely? That's a good thing. We should be happy about that. Listen, being alive is an ordeal, and if you manage to get a scrap of joy out of any of this, then that's amazing. I love when people enjoy things. Why do I sound sarcastic? I genuinely mean this. I'm not I'm being serious. I have like a tone. It makes me sound like I'm joking all the time, but I'm being genuine. Okay, so before we get to Katara, because this video really is very much about Katara, she's very personal to me, I'm going to say some things that I liked about the live action remake, because I think we should all be trying to be a bit positive on the internet. So I loved the creatures. I thought all of the spirits in the spirit world were amazing. The monsters, all the animal hybrids, genuine joy to watch. None of them felt like weird and too CGI to me. I really liked looking at them. Love a good monster, and these are some good monsters. Some of the Zuko Iroh flashbacks were really good, really moved me. I felt like they added a lot to the plot, and it was nice to get those moments. Some of the crossovers they did with the plot were really clever. I liked how they integrated moments from different episodes together. Great, kept things going really quickly. And also, my breakout, my personal favorite thing was Sokka. I know everyone was really worried and thought that Sokka was going to be like the worst thing about this. I would argue that he was the best thing about this. His performance and the way they really emphasized the burdens he places on himself as the older brother. This was good. This was really strong. Personally, my main issue with this was always going to be that I just didn't have much interest from the get-go, because I love animation. I just don't really get hard for live action remakes the way some people do. Animation is the OG for me. I mean, I built this whole channel back in the day of cartoon impressions. That is where my loyalties lie. I just love cartoons. I would like them to get the respect that they deserve. Animation is always going to be the ultimate medium to me. You can be silly in animation, you can go extreme and be playful. Often with live action remakes, when they try and have the same sort of coloring and high stylized imagery, it can just end up feeling a little uncanny valley. I think that's probably why we have so much backlash to Yue's wig, for example, because realistically, that's quite an accurate interpretation of that character's hair. But in real life, it just gives you this odd feeling that something isn't right. I found this one quote in a review by Kelly Lawler. It just sums up all my feelings about it. She said, "It's clear after 2 failed attempts to tell this story in live action that the greatness of Avatar was because of the animation, not in spite of it. Photorealism robs stories of their magic. Just see any Disney remake. It's almost like animation is more than just a cheaper way to make kids' TV. It's a beautiful art form of its own." Yes. The only thing that could really improve it in my mind would be a super high budget, very condensed animated remake, or maybe like one of those Ghibli style stage plays like they did for Spirited Away and My Neighbor Totoro, and maybe some musical numbers. Has Been the Last Airbender. Fuck, I have got Has Been Hotel Brain Rot. Hell of an Airbender. I just really love animated musicals. It's the highest form of art to me. There are a lot of good beats in this live action Avatar The Last Airbender, but I just can't get as excited for it as I ever can for animation or stage. And it's sad to me that the goal of animation seems to be whether or not it can get a live action remake. I don't know why we can't just appreciate animation as its own thing. I'm going into all of this looking at the live action as a sort of interesting, curious addition, like a little something extra to go with the forever OG animated series. All this being said, all of this just to say Katara is very special to me and we need to address what has been done to her. I only want good things for Katara. In many ways, this video is going to be an ode to Katara as much as it's going to be like a breakdown of what was wrong with her in the live action. Because yeah, I'm already seeing a bunch of these videos of people being like, live action, terrible, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to do that. I just really want to focus on Katara because I'm trying this whole thing where I like play on the internet, and what I feel like doing is talking about one of my favorite characters of all time. So that's what we're doing. There were a lot of problems with Katara, and I think it's important to talk about because in many ways it almost feels like a regression and something that could have been avoided, because I know these writers are capable, other than those first 2 episodes. They did some really good stuff and they added some interesting moments. So I just don't understand what happened to Katara. They had such good source material and this character was practically handed to them on a platter. So I just remain utterly baffled. Honestly, the amount of times they had her smiling inanely and just looking coy, I'm really heartbroken about it. I almost feel like they watched the Ember Island episode and just based her character on that. But even she had more personality. I don't know. The whole thing's a mystery. Okay, let's begin. I'm going to take you back in time. It's 2011 and I'm about to watch Avatar The Last Airbender for the very first time in my life. I am on holiday in the south of France with my family and I've been put in the very top floor in this little coffin of a room on this tiny rickety cot bed. You know, I feel like everybody remembers where they were the first time they watched Avatar The Last Airbender. So my brother has been telling me since summer began, dude, you gotta watch this show. It's like so good. My brother doesn't sound anything like that. And the weather sucks when we arrive and then I eat something bad and I get a real bad tummy, you know what I mean? I'm basically confined to my bedroom. I can't go swimming, I can't go outside, I can't do anything. So I decide, screw it. I'm just gonna watch all of this show. I have my laptop, I have a mild fever, I have a crumb of Wi-Fi that's like crawling up to the room I'm staying in, and I have the goddamn time of my life. Not only does this show give me a masterclass in storytelling and satisfying character arcs, the world is beautiful, the soundtrack is incredible, and it has this whole buffet of incredible female characters, which to this day is still quite rare and people really struggle with. I am looking at you, Madam Web. This was huge to me back then, and one character specifically really stood out to me and to this day is still one of my favorites of all time, Katara. So what is so special about Katara, one might ask? In many ways, Katara is the backbone of the Avatar The Last Airbender story. Listen, I'm aware that I'm about to get extremely preachy talking about this, but it's all true. And I could argue about this for days. Yes, I'm hanging a lampshade on it. Okay, class. It is her stubbornness and her perseverance and her unwavering faith which sparks the very start of this story. And it is also the flame that keeps the plot burning. If you go back and rewatch Avatar, you will notice these things, if you had not already. Katara is really the backbone of this whole plot. She's also so real because she's not just this like perfect, oh, we've got to have faith, we've got to keep the faith. She's really stubborn and she's sometimes jealous and she's sometimes bossy. She's sometimes like me. But she's also determined and caring to a fault. You watch her earn her power, and it's deeply satisfying to watch her go from this stubbornly hopeful teen who's just sort of dipping her toes in the water to a badass, a monumental badass who goes down as one of the greatest waterbenders in history. So what the hell happened? I'm dying to know. Actually, I think I do know, and that's why I'm making this video and I'm here to share it with the class. Obviously, a lot of characters in this show have been altered in some way, shape or form, and some of those changes are not for the best. But I do also want to point out that the first 2 episodes were particularly bad, and if you were able to get through them, there were some more interesting character beats and less of them just announcing their fears and hopes and their plans and their feelings. Good grief. But yeah, in this video, we are only focusing on Katara because in my mind, she was consistently the weakest, but it also just feels like there was very little excuse for what happened to her. Oh God, also, I'm really not hating on any of the actors. I genuinely love this cast. I've watched so many interviews with them. I also think Yo Wendy-O is so funny and so cool, and she's so like Katara in real life. So I'm just kind of like, girlie, like, what happened? What did they do to you? So I feel like this must be a developmental problem. I think this goes right up to the scriptwriters and the directors. It feels like nobody working on this show had any idea what Katara was supposed to be. So I doubt the actors had very much to work with, and I'm not putting any blame on them. Okay, class, we are going to break down the assassination of Katara's character into 2.5 parts. Number 1, her flaws and her strengths. Her flaws are really classic of a teenage girl, and I think that's why so many people like myself really resonated with this character. Apparently, a lot of people really didn't like her back in the day. I think this is a really common thing with young fandoms where people just like don't like one of the accurately portrayed teenage girls. I don't know why that is. I'm hoping we can all heal from this sickness. Yes, sir. Yes, so my buddy, old pal, has pointed out that it might be like that cringe response where you're seeing your own behaviors that you're scared of. I just need all of us fandoms in general to stop being so mean to female characters. I'm literally on my knees. But the thing about Katara that's so great is that her flaws are also mirrored in her strengths. I've made a list here. She can be argumentative, idealistic, stubborn, jealous, sometimes even mean. She is really mean to Toph sometimes when she makes fun of her for being blind, when she's like, oh, the stars are so beautiful tonight. Shame you can't see them, Toph. Cruel. But in the mirror, she's protective, righteous, loyal, and unwavering. I'm starting to feel like this video could have been a PowerPoint presentation. We watch her go from this wide-eyed, bossy girl to almost a saint-like figure, especially some of these episodes in season 3, you know, like the bloodbending episode and the Lady of the Lake episode. We really see that she is formidable. Thank God she like grows up and you get to see her grow up, because she would be scary otherwise. In the animated series, she is definitely not afraid to shout at other members of her team, let alone just like the general public. We see her argue with members of her team in almost every episode, and even though she's not always right, it always comes from a place of love. She feels these burdens of responsibility. She's constantly worried about everyone and feels this deep need to protect them. And the Katara we have in the live action seems to have been reworked to give a lot of these beats to Sokka. They've turned her into more of a classic little sister and put the burdens of responsibility onto her brother. I would be totally fine with this. Like, that's kind of a fun way to take this if they had replaced this with literally anything at all. I'm serious, anything, a crumb of personality. What we've been left with is a shell of a character. She is this vague, demure girl who seems pretty happy to go along with anything. The only arguments we ever see her have are mostly spurred on by Sokka and revolve around him being protective of her. These moments that more so feed into his character arc than they do to hers. Can you imagine this Katara having those huge blowouts that she does with Toph? This Katara feels like she would crumble in her presence, like she would cry in a ball and not be able to hold her own. I did not want to comment on this because it felt so supremely silly. At the time, I couldn't believe anyone was even discussing this. It felt so stupid. But I did read the stuff about them toning down the sexism in the show. It seems everyone assumed, including myself, that this was going to apply to Sokka, because his character arc goes from him being this sort of boneheaded, slightly useless, leave it to the men kind of guy, to becoming somebody who has a deep respect for all of the women in his life and becomes like really useful and finds his own. I was kind of whatever about this and not super concerned because I felt like there were other ways that they could tackle that with Sokka. But it turns out the character I should have been worried about was Katara. My concern now is that they were so worried about doing like a stereotypical, difficult, moody woman in Katara that they ended up stripping her character of anything that makes her her. They made her almost painfully agreeable. She's always smiling. Even in the few disagreements we see her have, she delivers her side very calmly and with very little gumption. It almost feels like she doesn't have any passion in anything she says. It feels passionless. By being so afraid of making a sexist character, they've ended up actually turning Katara into this archetype reserved girl. It's giving 50s housewife. It's giving Valium. And it's not just Katara. Yes, I know I said I wasn't going to talk about any of the other characters, but just give me like 1 second. But truly, it feels like a lot of the other girl characters have really been shunted in this live action. And it feels like this happened in some weird, like misguided attempt to fix them when there was literally nothing wrong with them. They were fine as they were. So my housemate has just pointed out that by changing Katara's character to be more agreeable, it's almost like they were saying that Sokka's sexism and people's attitude towards her in the show was right, and he was right, and they did need to tone her down. I have always been a very difficult and argumentative person. I know that's so hard to believe because I seem so sweet. So it was very nice and healthy for me to see a character like that who grows up and turns those aspects of her personality into positives. But this character, I don't feel like there's anything to learn from her. At the root of it, Katara is actually a deeply angry person. She holds a lot of resentment towards the Fire Nation for what they did to her mother and her village. And we just do not get any of that passion through in this version. Now, live action Katara does have a few really good character moments, or at least character moments. She has her disagreement with Sokka over Jet. She has her issues with wanting to learn combat waterbending. And she has that one fight with Zuko at the end after she's become a master waterbender. You know, the one where he calls her a peasant. But because we've not really had a chance in this series to get to know her or what drives her, which by the way is really weird because this series has a huge problem with just announcing every character's thoughts and feelings. So why not with Katara? It just felt like everything fell flat. When it came to Katara, I was left at the end of the series wondering, who are you? Okay, class, we're on to point number 2, her water-bending journey. One of the great things about Avatar: The Last Airbender is you get to watch these characters grow into themselves. The progression of Katara's waterbending in particular is a highlight of the show. There's a reason so many people make edits of Katara's waterbending journey. Like, it's just a joy to watch. You see her go from barely being able to make a ripple to becoming a full-fledged waterbending master, one of the greatest in history. At the time Avatar: The Last Airbender was airing, and when I got into it as well, the concept of a Mary Sue was really prevalent in all discourse surrounding like any female character, and people were always ready and waiting to accuse a character of being one. So it was such a relief in Atla to have these really well thought out female characters when no one could really apply the Mary Sue trope to them, because these were well written girls with well-documented journeys. You knew how they got their powers, you understood their thought processes, you understood their flaws and their strengths. No one could really argue that any of these characters were badly written. And you get to see this in real time with Katara. Not to sound preachy, if you're somebody who finds yourself getting really mad at like women in movies and how like embarrassing like the woke brigade of like, oh, these female first movies, I promise you, you're not mad at women and feminism, you are mad at badly written female characters. That is what you are mad at. You are actually on our side. I promise you. We're all in this together. Everybody love one another. We don't need to fight. I'm being actually fucking serious right now though. I'm right. In the live action, we do still get to see this progress with Katara to some degree. I won't deny them that. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna come on this video and lie and be like, oh, we didn't see it at all. What we do not see is her deep frustration around it. And even her cheekiness. Katara in the show is so desperate to learn waterbending that she's kind of a dick about it, and she's also willing to do some pretty bad things. Like, she commits actual crimes because she wants to learn it so bad. We see an actual deep hunger for this knowledge. I just explained to my housemate that they just gave Katara the scroll instead of her stealing it in the live action, and he's flabbergasted, as he rightly should be. In the animated series, we see Katara constantly attempting waterbending, and we see how her emotions affect her waterbending, which I will say was going to be a bit difficult for the live action series because this character has no emotions, so that was going to be like a bit of a trick for them to do. And we even see her steal the scroll from the pirates because she is so deeply desperate to learn waterbending that she's willing to commit crimes. Firstly, she gets the waterbending scroll simply handed to her. And secondly, we saw at the end of episode 1 that she uses her powers in a really triumphant way to save the day. And her only reaction to doing so is to just sort of grin inanely at the rest of the characters. Like, this is supposed to be a huge moment for her, and she doesn't seem to have any reaction at all. We don't see any of her frustration and not being instantly brilliant. And we don't see her constantly practicing and failing and trying again. So when she becomes a waterbending master at the end of the live action, we don't get any of that payoff. We don't get the thrill of what a massive deal this is for her and how hard she's worked for this. I'm not gonna lie and say that I didn't enjoy watching her use her powers. I still found it really exciting, and I thought that her final fight with Zuko in the last episode was really fun, and I really enjoyed watching it. And I liked her little one-liner about how I am the master. It was fun. I liked it. It was silly. It was fun. But can you imagine how much more that line would have hit if we'd had that proper emotional journey payoff? Even that fight with Master Paku, it felt muted because we just didn't see that fire, like that fury and determination. To Katara, this is a live and die moment. There is no other option in her mind than becoming a master waterbender. She's gonna learn combat waterbending. There is no other option. Okay, kids, it's time for the big one. Of all the things that have baffled me, what happened to the healing? The removal of healing, I am trying to work out in my head and I'm trying to make sense of, and I just cannot. Healing is something so rudimentary in the Water Tribe that when they go to the Northern Water Tribe, she's put in a class with a bunch of children because like everyone knows how to do this. It's something Katara already basically knows how to do. This is a wartime story. There is no reason why Katara wouldn't think that learning healing was a good thing to do. She's also a deeply protective and mothering person, and it was nice to see those aspects of her reflected in her ability to heal. Katara in the animated series is not against learning healing, it's just that that skill set is kind of beneath her at that point. Again, I have to wonder / fear / tremble, did they do this because they were worried about the trope of girls always being healers? Like, was this too stereotypical? Like, were they worried about that stereotype specifically? Because if that's the case, that was also addressed in the OG series. The point is, there's nothing wrong with being a healer. It's good and useful, but Katara shows that she can be that and more. It's meant to be this beautiful mirror of her personality, that she can be both fierce and argumentative and a fighter, and also this motherly, caring figure and a healer. To remove that aspect of her powers feels like such a massive disservice. Like, I actually find it rude. Again, like, if this is a sexism thing, like, what are we saying? That like these healing aspects of women are something to be frowned upon, and it's like correct that we should think that they're like weak and bad? I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I simply don't like it. My only hope with this, and my last point, is that this is because they're making room for some really big character development, and they have these plans that I simply can't comprehend. But it just feels like such a huge waste that in book 1, the story that revolves around them going to the Northern Water Tribe, a city full of Katara and Sokka's people, that Katara's story should end up being the one that got dampened. This should have been her arc, and she ended up getting completely lost. This last point is really a bonus point because I feel like there's still lots of areas to explore with it, but I wanted to just briefly touch on her relationships. Again, I'm going to give the live action showrunners the benefit of the doubt and assume this is something that they plan on exploring later. Other than Jet, we didn't see much of her teenage girl heartthrobness, so it's pretty much a blank slate in terms of that area right now, so there's not like much I can do in terms of comparison. And wait, I know what people are going to be thinking, and I am not getting involved in shipping discourse. I would not touch that with a 10-foot pole. That is not what I am talking about. What I mean is that Katara's relationships really reflect different aspects of her personality. With Sokka and Toph, she takes on kind of a responsible role, and with Aang, we see her take on this sort of protector guardianship role. It's a bit kind of like the princess and the knight, with Katara being the knight. And with Zuko, we get to see this darker side of her. We get to explore some of the more like difficult aspects of Katara's personality, her anger, her resentment, and her thirst for revenge. There's still so much room to explore these parts of her, and I'm simply going to hold out hope that they have plans for this. My rule in life is always to give everything 3 chances, so I am not going to rule out the live action Avatar: The Last Airbender yet. And I would also fundamentally be lying if I said I didn't enjoy some of it. A lot of it, I had a good time. My feelings about Katara are always going to be so personal. And yeah, I'm obviously really disappointed in what they did to her, which is why I've ended up making this video. But there is always room to improve. And maybe they will Sonic the Hedgehog it, and they will take on board some of the criticisms and work it into the next season. We simply have to hope. I probably missed a ton of stuff about Katara because I scripted this so quickly. I just had so many feelings and I had to get them out. So please do share your thoughts and feelings about Katara and any of the other characters. Tell me things that you loved about it. Tell me things that you didn't like about it. I would love to hear it. Not gonna lie, it's so exciting to be sort of involved in fandom again and posting stuff online and talking to people in fandoms after my 100 years on ice. I'm just always going to be a fan. Like, I just can't be serious. I just want to consume media and talk about it. That being said, I need to get back to work on my day job being a writer, so I need to go do some writing. And also I have a friend coming over and I'm probably going to watch Has Been Hotel again because they haven't seen it yet. Love you all. So nice to be back. See ya.